Stephen Miller is back in the news, this time on live TV, railing against Elon Musk after Elon Musk took his wife.
Stephen Miller has just suffered a downfall that defies belief, and what's just been exposed has left political observers across the country stunned. Stephen Miller stands as one of the most morally reprehensible members of Donald Trump's administration, making his recent public humiliation particularly satisfying to witness. The scandal involves not only Elon Musk's alleged involvement with his wife, but also the catastrophic backfire of Miller's illegal deportation plan, prompting his wife to finally break her silence after weeks of chaos within the Trump administration. The context begins in Los Angeles, where Donald Trump and Stephen Miller are deploying militarized forces against peaceful protesters. Trump recently declared that "we have been invaded by criminals and aliens," and announced his intention to liberate the city of Los Angeles. This inflammatory language escalates tensions, particularly when ICE agents appear in militarized uniforms rather than standard enforcement gear that they previously wore during raids and enforcement operations. The administration has been planning this confrontation for an extended period. They seek this showdown with California because they oppose what the state represents. LA County alone is 34% foreign-born, raising fundamental questions about Trump's liberation rhetoric. Who exactly needs liberating from whom? The administration wants to ensure people understand that Trump is making the situation worse through his deliberate provocations. The Los Angeles situation provides crucial context because Trump's illegal deportation plan cannot be viewed as his initiative alone. Stephen Miller serves as the primary architect of this comprehensive strategy, standing directly beside Trump as they deploy ICE forces against peaceful protesters. Miller designed the plan, which encompassed family separation policies, raids targeting high schools, middle schools, and elementary school graduations. The strategy appears deliberately designed to inflict maximum pain on communities while leveraging the resulting chaos to justify martial law implementation. Miller recently revealed the administration's true authoritarian intentions in a particularly significant statement that exposed their complete game plan. The Constitution is clear that the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus can be suspended in a time of invasion, so that's an option we're actively looking at. A lot depends on whether the courts do the right thing or not. At the end of the day, Congress passed a body of law known as the Immigration Nationality Act, which stripped Article III courts, that's the judicial branch, of jurisdiction over immigration cases. This comprehensive statement exposes the administration's systematic goal: create widespread chaos, inflict deliberate pain on targeted communities, and generate sufficient fear to justify martial law implementation, ultimately allowing Trump to assume the dictatorial powers he has consistently desired throughout his political career. ABC journalist Terry Moran called out Miller's authoritarian strategy in a social media post, describing him not as the intellectual architect behind Trumpism, but as someone fundamentally driven by bile. Moran's analysis characterized Miller as a man richly endowed with the capacity for hatred and a world-class hater. The journalist emphasized that Miller's defining characteristic isn't intellectual capacity, but rather his exceptional ability to channel and weaponize hatred into policy implementation. Moran's pointed criticism triggered an immediate and intense meltdown from Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt during a morning briefing. So-called journalist Terry Moran went on a rampage against Stephen Miller. ABC will have to answer for what their again so-called journalist put out on Twitter in the wee hours of the night calling Stephen Miller vile. They said that President Trump is a world-class hater, and this is coming from someone who is supposed to be an unbiased and professional journalist. This is unacceptable and unhinged rhetoric coming from someone who works at a major television network. We have reached out to ABC. They have said they will be taking action, so we will see what they do. Leavitt's aggressive response included direct attacks on the journalist, explicit calls for his silencing, and successful pressure that resulted in ABC suspending Moran. However, the controversy escalated further when Stephen Miller's wife, Katie Miller, broke her month-long Twitter silence to address the expanding scandal. Following weeks of chaos within the Trump administration caused by the ongoing Musk-Trump feud, Katie Miller posted her first tweet in a month, directly addressing the current situation and breaking her silence over the developing scandal. Her statement read, "This is why Americans don't trust the legacy media. When masks are down, you see the radical left-wing bias at ABC. These are the people feeding propaganda across the airwaves under the guise of righteousness. Terry Moran should be fired from the network immediately. The irony of Katie Miller's media bias accusations proves particularly striking considering Trump's extraordinarily close relationship with Fox News, where they will reportedly begin reading him his morning briefings. Additionally, Elon Musk purchased Twitter specifically for pushing conspiracy theories and conservative propaganda, making claims about left-wing media bias hypocritical. The conservative response demonstrates classic behavior, becoming upset when Miller faces legitimate criticism for his documented vile actions, including the systematic family separation policies that have caused immeasurable trauma. Notably, Katie Miller changed her Twitter banner to a SpaceX rocket right after defending her husband, hinting at a shift in loyalties as the Musk-Trump situation unfolds. The change seems aimed at easing her husband's embarrassment over the Elon controversy, which she had previously stayed silent on. The deportation agenda continues, causing devastating real-world consequences, while Trump simultaneously complains about police officers he deliberately sends to instigate situations in Los Angeles. Representative Jasmine Crockett highlighted the administration's fundamental hypocrisy. It's interesting that one set of behaviors somehow is going to get a family rich overnight, and the other folk that were there in that video, the members of Congress, well, they're saying, arrest them. Let me remind you that those January 6thers have been pardoned. Let me remind you that yet another January 6th was just arrested a few days ago for committing what? Another crime. So if we're going to talk about keeping our streets safe, let's be real about who's causing crimes. Crockett pointed out that January 6th rioters got full due process, but many should still be in prison to keep Americans safe, especially since some had violent criminal pasts. Meanwhile, Trump's administration removed key oversight offices meant to protect civil rights, firing staff at DHS's Civil Rights Office, the Citizenship and Immigration Services Ombudsman, and the Immigration Detention Ombudsman. They claimed these offices blocked immigration enforcement and hurt DHS's mission. The administration shut down key oversight offices that monitored civil rights and detention conditions, leaving no one to check Trump's immigration policies. Since his inauguration, 9 detainees have died in ICE custody, the highest number since 2020, showing the deadly cost of losing oversight. Meanwhile, Democrats have continued their legal oversight visits to detention centers, like in Florida and Newark, to ensure humane treatment, not to interfere with operations. The administration is turning lawful oversight into a crime, as a Trump-allied U.S. attorney charged Congresswoman McCollum for visiting a detention center, a right protected by federal law and the Constitution's speech and debate clause. With Republican support, MAGA leaders are abandoning their duties, helping the executive branch grab power and weaken the checks and balances that protect American freedoms.
Were you immediately in a depression, or did you see it? You were?
Yeah.
And did you say to yourself, that's it, it's the end of my career,
Yes.
I'm never going to go anywhere?
Yep. But
Were you close to breaking up the band anyway? Do you think you guys would have broken up because Kurt was going his own way?
I think at that point it was important that we take a break.
Dave Grohl just said something about Kurt Cobain that left longtime Nirvana fans absolutely speechless. It's been over 3 decades since Kurt's tragic passing, but the memories and mysteries still linger. What Grohl revealed this time? It's more personal than ever before. It happened on a quiet morning. Dave Grohl was speaking on The Howard Stern Show. Candid and unguarded, when he dropped a heartfelt reflection that hit Nirvana fans right in the gut. He wasn't promoting a new album or planning a grand reunion. He was remembering. Everybody knows if Kurt smiles, it lights up the room because he usually doesn't. Dave Grohl. Just that one line, simple, tender, triggered a wave of emotion online. For those who lived through the rise of Nirvana, who still feel the echo of Kurt's voice in every guitar riff, this wasn't just a memory, it was a portal. There was something almost haunting in the way Grohl said it, as if, for a brief moment, he wasn't just talking about Kurt, he was speaking to him. Fans caught it instantly, the pause in his voice, the look in his eyes. This wasn't nostalgia. This was grief that never left. He wasn't alone. Fans across the world chimed in, some commenting how they hadn't thought about Nirvana in years, but suddenly felt 16 again, with Never Mind blasting through their headphones. Grohl admitted that he still thinks about Kurt all the time. Sometimes he even dreams about him, not with fear, not with regret, but with a strange, aching closeness, as if in those dreams, time never moved on. Dave Grohl. I dream about Kurt sometimes. It always feels real. These are not the words of a rock star. They're the quiet admissions of a man who lost a brother. Grohl confessed that in those dreams, Kurt is usually smiling, not the tortured icon the world remembers, but just Kurt. Playful, mischievous, human. And that's what stuns people. For decades, Cobain has been frozen in time. A myth, a martyr. But for Dave, he was just a friend. A bandmate who made dumb jokes backstage, who scribbled lyrics in messy notebooks, who sometimes needed space, and sometimes Grohl's voice cracked slightly as he said it. He doesn't rehearse these stories. He doesn't polish the pain. That's what makes it hit so hard. Then came the Fire Aid benefit concert in January 2025, a rare moment, historic even, when surviving Nirvana members reunited for something more than just music. It was a memory. It was a tribute. Grohl on drums, Krist Novoselic on bass, Pat Smear on guitar. Violet Grohl walks on stage. Grohl's daughter Violet took the mic for all apologies. And in that moment, it wasn't just a song. It was a resurrection of Kurt's voice, through the daughter of the man who once kept rhythm to it. The performance wasn't about perfection. It was about presence, about that invisible thread tying past to present. Fans in the crowd, many of them parents who once moshed to Nirvana, held their children's hands as Violet sang. Tears flowed freely. The set list was short, but every note mattered. From Come As You Are to Lithium, it felt, and maybe, just maybe, he was. Kurt Cobain's legacy is complicated, icon tragedy, genius, but for Dave it's something quieter. It's in the silence before a show, in the crackle of old tapes, in the smile that rarely came, but when it did, changed everything. There's a photo from 1992. Dave and Kurt side by side, arms slung around each other, sweat soaked from a show in Munich. They weren't legends then. Just kids playing their hearts out, unaware they were reshaping music history. Grohl has kept that photo, not framed in gold, just tucked in a drawer, like a secret only he needs to remember. Because for Dave, Kurt isn't just a legend. He's a ghost who never stopped whispering through the music. When fans heard the full interview, the reaction was immediate. Social media lit up. Hashtags like You Kurt Lives and You Grohl Speaks trended within hours. Not because of scandal, but because of truth. Overlay tweets and comments. I'm crying in my car. This brought me back to 1994. Violet singing All Apologies Just Broke Me. It reminded people that grief doesn't vanish. It just changes shape. And sometimes the ones left behind carry it in the music. One fan wrote, I didn't realize how much I missed him until I heard Dave talk like that. Another said, we never really lost Kurt, not while Dave's still talking. In a world moving faster than ever, it's easy to forget the past. But moments like this, when a grunge icon pauses to remember his fallen friend, pull us back. Remind us what mattered, what still matters. There are younger fans now discovering Nirvana for the first time. Teenagers, even kids streaming in utero like it just dropped yesterday. And when they see Grohl speaking about Kurt, they don't just hear music, they hear history. And maybe that's the biggest legacy of all. For Grohl, it seems Kurt's still here, in dreams, in chords, in his daughter's voice. That's the twist. The man who changed a generation never really left it. Grohl said something quietly during the interview, almost as an afterthought. Sometimes I pick up the guitar and think, would Kurt like this? Would he laugh at this lyric? Would he tell me it sucks? And it's in those questions that we see the real bond. Not as icons, but as friends, lost and found. Kurt Cobain died in 1994, but in 2025 he sang again. Through memories, through love, through those still playing his music. If you were ever moved by Nirvana, if their music marked a chapter in your life, then this moment matters. Because it's not just about what Dave Grohl said, it's about what we still feel. Tell us in the comments, what did Nirvana mean to you? If this story moved you, don't keep it to yourself. Hit that like button to honor Kurt's legacy. Subscribe for more powerful stories from the icons who shaped our lives, and share this video with someone who still remembers the sound of Nirvana playing for the first time.
So he says he needs to talk to me alone, and I'm thinking, I don't know, does he want to raise or what's going on? But I'm thinking, cool, I got to tell you about this Street Outlaws thing. So Aaron's got his serious hat on, and he's fixing to tell me something, and I'm pretty sure I'm not going to like it.
Richard Rawlings has just made the most explosive revelation in automotive television history, and what he revealed about the shocking collapse of Fast and Loud has completely shattered everything fans thought they knew about the beloved Discovery Channel series. The Gas Monkey Garage legend's devastating tell-all about the show's final season has exposed systematic behind-the-scenes corruption that turned America's favorite car restoration show into a toxic nightmare of manipulation, betrayal, and corporate greed that ultimately destroyed everything he had built. Everybody hold on to your hat out there. Fast and Loud is no more. I have exited Discovery and I'm a free agent, Rawlings announced in what can only be described as the most shocking departure statement in reality TV history. But the real story behind those words reveals a level of industry corruption that will leave you questioning everything you've ever watched on television. What happened during Fast and Loud's final season wasn't just creative differences or natural evolution, it was a systematic campaign of destruction orchestrated by Discovery Channel executives who had completely lost sight of what made the show successful in the first place. The explosive revelations begin with the toxic production environment that had been festering behind the scenes for years. While fans saw the high-energy antics and incredible builds, the reality was far more sinister. The pressure to meet tight deadlines often conflicted with his high standards for craftsmanship, which ultimately made the working environment unsustainable. Former team members revealed about the impossible conditions they faced. But the most damaging revelation centers around Aaron Kaufman's devastating departure, which wasn't the amicable split that Discovery tried to portray. The last 5 years were really tough mentally and physically. We were always rushing, and there was no opportunity to stay and do something that I cared about deeply anymore, Kaufman revealed in a 2017 interview that exposed the ugly truth about what was happening at Gas Monkey Garage. Aaron's exit wasn't just about creative differences, it was about systematic abuse of the team's passion and craftsmanship in service of manufactured drama. I wanted more time for the cars and the work. Richard wanted to keep the show moving at full throttle. But this wasn't Richard's fault. This was Discovery Channel forcing impossible production schedules that prioritized television drama over automotive excellence. The most explosive part of Rawlings' revelations involves Discovery's systematic manipulation of the show's content. Producers often restructured or edited events to create a more engaging narrative. Tight deadlines and sudden conflicts, which often resolved just in time, led some fans to speculate that parts of the show were staged. While Richard has consistently denied that the show was scripted, his recent comments reveal that Discovery's interference went far beyond simple editing. Producers sometimes pushed for certain builds or scenarios that they believed would resonate better with audiences, even if it didn't fully align with the team's usual workflow. This represents systematic creative sabotage, where network executives who knew nothing about automotive restoration dictated how Gas Monkey Garage operated, destroying the authentic culture that made the show special in the first place. The behind-the-scenes corruption became so severe that it created a mass exodus of talented team members who couldn't tolerate the toxic environment. Some employees reportedly felt the show prioritized entertainment over real automotive work, leading to dissatisfaction and departures. Former employee Tom Smith's explosive TMZ interviews revealed the extent of the abuse. The team faced unrealistic expectations to meet the demands of TV production. This wasn't just about working hard, this was about the Discovery Channel creating impossible conditions that sacrificed the physical and mental health of the Gas Monkey Garage crew. But wait, there is more. The most damaging aspect of Discovery's interference was how it destroyed the authentic relationships that made Fast and Loud special. Sources close to the crew described disagreements over which cars to feature and creative disputes about design choices, particularly when producers pushed for drama over authenticity. Richard and Aaron's partnership, which had been the heart of the show, became collateral damage in Discovery's pursuit of manufactured conflict. Richard's focus was on monetizing the builds and growing the Gas Monkey brand, while Aaron wanted more creative freedom and room to experiment with the cars. But this wasn't a natural business disagreement. This was the inevitable result of network pressure that forced Richard into an impossible position. The corruption extended to the show's core content, with systematic staging of what should have been authentic automotive discoveries. Accusations surfaced that some car deals and restorations weren't as authentic as they appeared on screen, with critics claiming that certain barn finds were prearranged or that cars were prepped before filming to enhance the drama. While Richard has consistently denied these specific allegations, stating there's no script or setup. We find what we find and we flip what we flip.